and the landlord wanted to or increase the rent to market rate, and some cases up to 300%. That's how we start fighting, to stay in the homes.
And we're definitely going to ask more about your campaign and your fight. So, because Hillside Villa right now is probably that plus the Barrington Apartments is probably the biggest tenant fight right now in LA County, as far as multiple tenants fighting for their housing. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Barrington building, but it's on the west side, and it's a bunch of elders who live in pretty fixed, I think it's rent stabilized, and they're trying to oh, sorry. I need and caffeinated and sleep deprived at the same time. My name's Alexandra Hong, Alexi as well. I am an attorney officially with the LA County Bar Association. I currently work with veterans and people living with HIV/AIDS, doing kind of another eviction, but it's basically I'm not really in court anymore. But before that, I started at Eviction Defense Network, then went to Intercity, then went to Basta, then went to Hadsel Stormer Unite Here Local 11's legal fund representing union workers. Then took a break because I had babies, and then ended up at the LA County Bar. Before that, though, I was a super crusty, confused kid that was riding trains and hitchhiking and living in squats and thinking, fuck the system, and cursing a lot, which I still do, which is great. Was here. It was kind of funny to think about this because I was doing Food Not Bombs at the last time that the book fair was here, across the street. And I think doing work with Food Not Bombs really influenced me to want to do this type of work, especially housing, because I think our LA chapter is so unique that we really do share food with a lot of unhoused people compared to anywhere else in the country. And super proud of that because that's what we should be doing in Los Angeles. But I hope to inspire the folks here to think about a legal career because we are desperate for eviction defense attorneys right now, and we'll get into that as we go. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really glad you guys showed up. We were kind of worried, so I'm so glad because this struggle is like a struggle to me right now, and there's not many collective struggles going on in LA, which really sucks. So.
Hi everybody, my name is Jorge Rivera. I'm with the Healing and Justice Center. I've been doing tenant organizing for a little over 10 years. I graduated Cal State Long Beach with a psych and philosophy major and got into foster care. And then I was in foster care system, working in there with parents and children that had disabilities for about 5 years. Got really disenchanted with it. And then I wanted to start my own thing, so some friends of mine, they were going into real estate at that time, so I got into real estate. I did real estate for about 10 years total, but right around the time that I was getting my footing so that I can earn capital so I can start my own organization, the market Tenants. And I lost my house at that time, saw everybody else losing their house. I started having all this time on my hands, so I lived in Long Beach at the time. I decided to learn about my community that I didn't know anything about. And I came across this organization that was actually doing housing and tenants' rights, basically trying to change systems. And this is not something that I studied in school, but I really resonated with what they were trying to do. And I'm like, I'm all in, teach me everything that you know. And that's how I got into tenant organizing, and I've been organizing ever since. I helped found the Long Beach Residents of Power organization, which is still up and running, that does a lot of tenant activism. And then we just recently founded the Healing and Justice Center. And basically what we do is we infuse healing and wellness practices with everything that we do as far as advocacy and organizing. So that's kind of all of it.
Okay. You want me to pass forward to see if you want? I guess I can start. What are some of the most important things that we need to know about what's happening with tenants' rights and eviction defense right now at the stage of law? ¿Eres clearing up some of the mess? ¿Cuáles son las cosas más importantes que los chilenos deberían saber ahorita sobre sus derechos, lo que está pasando ahorita localmente y también en el Estado? ¿Cuáles se quieren clarificar?
I think that the most important thing is people should not, okay, we should learn more about our rights. And the first thing is that when we get a notice from the landlord, for example, we just got a 3-day notice to pay what we owe or quit in 30 days, but that's from the landlord. So it doesn't mean that we have to pay right away or that we have to leave in 30 days. And we have seen this all around the city, that people evict themselves when they get these notices from the landlord, not even from the court. So I think we need to share this information with all the tenants who are in this situation, because many, thousands of people here in LA, we are in debt of rent because of the pandemic, and it is impossible to pay that amount of rent in like 30 days. It's impossible, and the city has to, or the county, and government in general, they need to do something to help us on this, because there will be evictions all over. And the sad part for me is this, that some people are getting afraid to get those notices from the landlord. They don't get legal advices or legal support, and then they evict themselves. They don't fight the case. They could have a case where they could stay in their apartments or in their place instead of moving, and many of the times very far from LA. So for me, information, educate people right now is the key, so people don't get evicted themselves.
Just to comment though to that, and I think this is what I saw as a tenants attorney during COVID, is so many people freaked out when COVID first hit because they couldn't pay their rent. And this is after years of already helping folks that never could pay their rent anyway. And at that point, always thinking, oh, if we just had rental assistance, then the world would be better. And now I think we're seeing that even when rental assistance occurred from the state, from local level to the county to the state level, that people still weren't able to keep up, and so much shenanigans still occurred, and we still are seeing landlords who collected, my partner just had one where the landlord got about 80 grand in the bailout and is still evicting his family and is obviously committing fraud. And so we asked the state for help, but then you will see from at least my perspective as the lawyer, because I've been involved in this mess, is there's no enforcement and there's no oversight. And the only one that gets oversight is this, alleged scammer who got unemployment when maybe they shouldn't have. And you should see how much money they will dump into that versus those slumlords that got so much bailout money and didn't provide hot water to their tenant, or there was molds. I also deal a lot with veterans who are on subsidized housing, and they have landlords who are getting our tax dollars that are actively harassing them, disrespecting their rights as people with disabilities. It's so hard because on one hand you're saying, please government help, but then as someone with an anarchist perspective, I'm going, but the state isn't ever going to help, and it's actually working just like it should be. And it's so unfortunate that at the beginning of COVID, I was honestly really excited because I said, good, now everybody's fucked. That means we can all actually come together, because that is the hardest part as tenants. I'm a tenant too. There are tenants who make lots of money. There are tenants that don't make lots of money. How do we get people who are coming from different class, different language, different everything in LA County, which is the population of many of our states in this country, to come together? And I always go to this fatalist point of, well, does it take a disaster? And then even with the disaster, now we're going to see the new disaster, and I'm hoping, okay, are we still got the energy to keep going? Because it is hard. Because people are burnt from COVID and all the organizing that happened, and then all of a sudden, the last minute, oh yeah, there is some money. Now we're seeing it again, I think, is that people are like, I still can't pay it, and they're still asking. Karen Bass is over there saying, oh, I'm going to get more money for the landlords. So what do we do? if we keep asking the state to bail us out, it's never going to answer the solution that housing is never going to make sense in a capitalist framework. And then what? And it's a struggle because not everybody is going to want to go fight the same level that your neighbor is, you know, and that's solidarity, this topic of the book fair. How do we create solidarity in housing? It's so hard. It's just, especially in LA, which has the most insane economic divide that any city in LA, in the United States really, I think, we see it and down the street, you know, Skid Row. So, sorry, I don't have many solutions, but just thoughts.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I think one of the things that I've learned in my work is that we need to look at this as on a macro lens as well, because it's not just about the housing, because the housing and our housing is tied to so many other aspects of our lives, right? And when we take a lens of healing and wellness, it's like, how are we going to heal ourselves and our communities when we don't even have stable housing? When we're always in fear of losing what we have, of being on the streets, of not being able to pay rent, of putting food on the table? How are we going to be able to build resiliency and then interdependency with one another if we don't have that, right? So for us, housing is foundational for interdependency and community. And so we like look at all of these policies and things like that to try to help people, but we're not addressing the social, emotional aspect of our housing in the work that we do. And I think that that's something that we need to integrate. Like working with tenants, it's like they're stressed out in their minds.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and how are you going to organize somebody that's in crisis? That is just worried about where I'm going to be the next day, right? You can't, because if you know anything about like brain and learning and development, it's like if you're in fight or flight mode, learning is not happening. So how do you teach and have them absorb new information and then want them to go fight when they're in crisis mode, right? And so when we look at organizing of the tenants and housing movement, it's like we believe that we need to focus in on that psychosocial emotional factor, and we need to be able to build those relationships and to have empathy and compassion as we're doing the fight. Because even for the advocates, the attorneys, and the tenants, it's stressful all around. It's stressful all around, and so to rely and to think that the government and the state is going to bail us out, is going to help us out, that's just not going to happen. It's like we as a community, as people, as human beings, need to learn to form relationships, work together, have compassion and empathy for one another if this is going to change. Right.
You brought up a very good point in terms of solidarity and empathy. Can you tell us a little bit, one of your tenants was that there's such a far concept about who is living in this place. Folks never think it's going to happen to them until it does. And then folks wonder, like, why are there so many folks that are housed? Why are they struggling? It's on the get Spanish. ¿Nos puede comunicar un poquito más de qué tan rápido ese proceso puede ser de evicción? ¿Qué es lo que está pasando? ¿Nos está viendo las familias, las cosas? Porque mucha gente siempre piensa, oh, eso no va a pasar, el niño trabajo duro y así, eso es todo. Entonces, pero mucha gente no entiende que puede ser una emergencia, puede ser algo que alguien fallece. So what is the one step that it takes you from house to unhoused? So that these are common stories that we keep seeing that folks just don't realize. Si nos puede comentar un poquito de eso. If you want to touch on it, it's a rough show there, so let's go on.
Yeah, well, I don't know what I could say about it because we haven't been evicted yet. We've been fighting for almost 5 years. We still there in our building, and like I said, we just got the 30 days, the 3-day notice to pay or 30 days to leave or to vacate. And after that, what our lawyers have told us is that the landlord is going to make the decision if it's taken to court. So then, if he goes to court to try to evict us, we are going to receive a bunch of papers on mail or in person and we have 5 days to answer. And that's another mistake that we have heard of many tenants, that they receive these papers from court and they decide just not to answer and to evict themselves. And we have 5 days to answer those papers from court. After that, there is another process where the lawyers deal with the landlord's lawyers, with the tenant's lawyer and the judge and all that, until it comes to a date when we go to trial or we go to court. And that process right now, we have told that it's about maybe a year, approximately right now, maybe more, I don't know. But that's what we were told. And in our particular case, our lawyers have told us that we have a very strong case to win, because those rent increases that we got were during the pandemic and they were illegal. So it is the fact that we just need to make the judge understand that these are illegal. So that's how our case is based on right now. And meanwhile, we are working on this other plan for the city to acquire the building, and we're pushing hard for the city to buy the building via eminent domain. And lately it came another option to make a deal with the landlord to extend the covenant for another at least 30 years. That's what we're expecting. But there are many things that could happen before we can be unhoused. So I don't know if that helps, but in many cases, like I said, people don't follow the whole process. They just speak themselves, and that's very common. It is very common. So, and I agree with you that in many situations, people lost their job, they lost income, they have a family member got sick, and they spend all their savings, and that's why they go on this, situation of being evicted. I mean, there are different cases. I mean, each person has a different case. Like in in a particular case at Hilsa Villa, we were working good. All our neighbors were paying our rent on time and all that. But then the covenant expired, and the landlord decided to raise the rent to market rate more than 100% to 100%, and that's when we got impacted, because we were used to pay this amount of rent, and suddenly, the landlord tried to make us pay the double, so it's like an eviction as well, So.
Yeah, I think. What's so powerful about Hillside Village is that it is a bunch of tenants coming together. In some of the cases I see, it's very individual and depending on their own. And when you are dealing with all the trauma that led to the eviction, or you have mental health issues or other impairments that are affecting your ability to figure out what to do, you end up on the street. I was helping this one lady who had a paint can fall on her head. So she has a traumatic head injury. She's a veteran, and she, for the life of me, it's taken us 3 staff members and about 4 full days trying to just piece together this person's story. She literally came to our office with about 4 bags of some random ass shit. I'm like, why do you have this? But I get she's just I just keep everything, and she's being evicted for $985. And it's a tax credit building, and so there's different. What they live in is it was a covenant that was an affordable housing covenant, I believe. That was back when Chinatown wasn't considered the hip neighborhood. They convinced this guy, hey, if you take this place, rent it out, we'll give you a break. I think that's basically the situation with their housing. And so that covenant has expired, and that's why this landlord. And then tax credit is this type of solution where basically these private companies just get a tax break to build this shit housing, and then they get subsidies from the government. And then there's sections. So there's all these different types of capitalist solutions to try to make affordable housing. So this tax credit place that is our tax money. So, $985. This is how much work is having to be spent to save one person's housing. So imagine, all these other people, and then unfortunately with Hillside right now too, I mean, it's 40 eviction cases, I think,
It's
about
all-
that.
Yeah, about the 40.
I mean, and there's only 2 lawyers right now. I know Jacob, and I mean, the strength they have is if all 40 cases go to trial, we can clog the court, which is what I thought could have happened at the beginning of COVID, is that nobody paid rent and wasn't chicken shit, but unfortunately, we're so scared. And we're so ashamed of debt. And we're so ashamed of talking about it. People are so ashamed of talking about living in shitty conditions. Oftentimes when I do intakes, I have to be like, really specific, like, are you sure you don't have roaches? Are you sure? Because I bet you do, because you live in Koreatown, and I know every apartment there has roaches. Like, people are so ashamed. So it's not only, okay, get educated, but also get over your shit, because you are fucked. And like, let's talk about it, and let's not be ashamed that you couldn't afford your rent. I mean, people don't want to talk about these things, and it's ingrained into us, and it's unfortunate. But that's why people end up on the street. They don't want to ask for help. So the most important thing that everyone can do here is go to the fucking eviction court that's down the street, Stanley Mosque. That's the downtown court. It is the busiest eviction court in all of the country. And just to give you perspective, we had the case numbers go 23 STUD 01, blah, blah, blah. So right now, I was looking at a case in April. It was like 1326. So at that point in April, that's how many evictions have been filed in downtown LA. We are now at about 9,800. That's how quickly it's gone, just from the COVID protections expiring. That's how many evictions we have, just in downtown LA. So if everybody goes down there and just gives support, just moral support, because I know not everyone can be an attorney, but like, people need it. They are so afraid of what they're going through, and they're not as brave as these fine folks here, because it's fucking scary. And it's so good that you guys have each other, and that's always what I tell my clients too. It's like, bring a buddy to court. It is fucking intimidating. The judges don't give a shit. They are racist. They are awful human beings. I mean, the judge I had with the client with the pink can thought my client, who is 80 pounds, 5'3", because it said black woman was served, was like, oh, well, it must be her, even though the proof of service said she was 160 pounds and 5'7". The guy was just like, oh, well, all black people are the same. That's who's on the bench, okay? It's fucked. So I think that would be my homework assignment, because everyone goes down there on Monday and like shows up with like, I support you, tenants, because people really need that support.
No, I don't think I have anything to add. It's like one of the first things that I did when I was organizing is I went and I sat in eviction court. And it's just like Alexi says. It's absolutely built against the tenant. It's stacked against the tenant. And if they show up without an attorney, they are for sure going to lose. Absolutely for sure going to lose. And even as an advocate going in there with tenants, it's just really tough because the opposing attorney won't even talk to me, won't want to talk to me because I know the rights. And so it's just really, really horrible. So I think what Alexi pointed out and what Alejandro points out is that there's a multitude of factors that go into the problems that we have around housing right now. Information and education, the court systems, the government, and policies. It's not just one single thing. And one thing that we hear a lot is like, oh, we just need to build more housing, right? Well, studies have shown that even if you build housing, they're not going to become affordable for 30 years. So it doesn't matter how much housing you build, it's not going to be affordable for the people that need it the most. So building our way out of this problem is not a solution. It's like, and then rental assistance is just a landlord subsidy. It just puts money into the pockets of the landlord. I don't even like that word, of the property owner. And it still puts the tenants at risk. So like, our fight for the most part is just to try to keep people in their homes as much as possible, as best as we can, because that's their safe haven, and if we can keep them there, they can continue to fight. But the fact that they have to continue to fight should not be a reality. It should not be a reality, and it's unfortunate that I feel like we're in this revolving door of a movement, right? We're burning ourselves out as advocates, where we don't have enough attorneys, the tenants are getting displaced, homeless is going up, and it's just this revolving door. And I don't know, like, we need to stop the bleeding. We need to stop the bleeding somehow, and the only way that I see us doing that is by having strong policies and keep people in their homes as much as possible, so that we have at least the fortitude to be able to continue the fight. Because if Alejandro and the Hillside Villa tenants, they get displaced, they're moving out of the county, they're moving out of state, and so how are they going to continue the fight? Like, how will they continue the fight? And so we got to rebuild, again, as organizers, we got to rebuild the community, rebuild the movement, because we've lost a huge sector of the people that were in it to win and to fight. And then we just got to do it all over again. And until we are able to find a way to keep them in their homes, to have them be able to have a place to rest their head so that they can continue the fight the next day, it's just going to be this constant revolving door, right? And we're never going to find a solution to it. So that's what I want.
I can tell you affordable housing is not one of the solutions to it. If you get a tool for it, as somebody builds affordable housing, but some of those, you have a property that's 17 units, 2,000 people qualify, and not all of them are qualified, right? So I want us to segue into like, okay, there's a lot of folks facing evictions, the legal aid system, there's not enough attorneys. What are some of the other barriers in accessing that, right? And I think some more regulators is like, the offices that are open, are they actually available to the folks that need it the most, right? So if we think about who are the tenants that are most needed, you're thinking of folks who are monolingual, multimodal, and in childcare. Some oficinas are only open on the weekends, but if you're working 2 jobs, right? How accessible are the resources? Let's answer that question. So, right, so we have Alexi, who's one person, Jorge, who's another person. Can we talk a little bit or learn a little bit about strategies from the emails about how have you managed to organize yourselves? What are some of the tactics that you use? What works? What doesn't work? What do you think is like the most accessible form of folks working together? So you're doing it as an entire complex, no? So can you tell us a little bit more of strategies that you're using to educate each other and support each other? Cuando no está Alex, cuando no está Jorge.
¿Qué es lo que hacen para poder mantener la solidaridad y mantenerse unidos? ¿Qué están haciendo?
¿A qué horas se reúnen? ¿Qué es lo que están haciendo? ¿Hacen dinas? ¿Qué están haciendo para ayudarse en sus casos ahorita?
Okay, since we got the notices that the rent was gonna be increased up to 100 to 100%, in some cases, a couple of cases 300%. We have a courtyard in the building, and we all start knocking doors. 2-3 persons started, and then we all came to the courtyard, and we were discussing what we could do. At the same time, another neighbor who she passed away already, she contacted Spanish Channel 34, and they refer her to the LA Tenant Union. And then after that, another organization from Chinatown joined us. It's a CCD, Chinatown Community for Equitable Development. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so after that, we decided that we wanted to fight back. We wanted to stay in our homes. So someone brought this issue, or this like we are family here. We are going through the same thing, and that's how we consider each other in our building. We are not just considered my neighbor, my friend. We are family. We live there. We are fighting for the same, and we try to support each other. Whatever someone needs, someone can help, or we can help each other. That's how we are organized. That we are looking to each other. And we created a chat on WhatsApp where any problem that we have or any communication, it goes to the chat. Sometimes it's irrelevant, but sometimes it's very important. Whatever we communicate, everybody knows what's going on. Like the day that we got the notices, it was on a Saturday, so we all decided that we had to meet and talk about it. And like yeah, that's the way we do. Um, Unfortunately, at the beginning there were some neighbors that they evict themselves. The landlord offered them money, so they took it and left. We heard about a couple of them that they regretted to leave because they see us after 4 or 5 years still there. And he brought Section 8 tenants to those vacant apartments. So up to date, I think he has rented about 8 to 10 units for Section 8 tenants because it's kind of hard for any other tenant to pay that market rate in that building because our building is a fourth floor, 124 units, but the only amenities that we have, or the only thing we have, is the courtyard and 2 laundry rooms on each room. We don't have any pool. We don't have any space for like I don't know, like other apartments. They have like gym. They have some recreational room and stuff. We don't have none of that. So the amount of rent that he's asking is really high for what it is, the building. So, and these tenants, Section 8 tenants, especially the new ones, they don't want to know anything about our fight. We've been trying to inform them, and some of them even are kind of rude. Some of them, listen to us, but they don't get involved. But some of them, they're really rude. So that's kind of hard to, make them to join us, make them participate because they feel secure with their sectional voucher. Whatever they pay for rent, they feel secure. And for me, it's kind of selfish because they don't care about nobody else. I'm safe. I have a home. I don't care about you. Do whatever you want. But that's the thing that we need to create this I don't know, like you said, empathy and to others, to support each other because why did you get the Section 8 voucher? You had a bad situation. You had to apply because you didn't have enough money to pay a regular rent. Then you get your voucher, you get your apartment. So and it means that it looks like you forgot what you went through, and now that you're secure. So I don't know. It's another thing that comes to my mind that how can I make these people change, their mind to support us? So that's a big challenge. I don't know how to do it. We have in our association about 5 or 6 tenants who are Section 8, and they're very supportive to us. But other than that, that's a big challenge, the Section 8 tenants. And other than that, like I said, the ones that we are going through all this process, we try to support each other on any way that we could. I don't know, and like I say, we call each other familia. We are family.
Let me ask the audience, how many of you are renters?
Yeah.
Okay. And of those renters, how many of you know all of your neighbors in the building? Yeah. Right. And this is what we normally see. We see a lot of buildings that don't know their own neighbors, right? Because our society teaches individualism and stick to your own, get your own piece of the pie, take care of yourself, watch out for your own bags, right? And that's what we teach. And it takes a crisis such as theirs to unite them, right? Which it's great, but like Alexi was saying, is like that shouldn't be the case, right? If we want to start building a strong movement, we have to start building those relationships and that interdependency now, before the crisis happens, right? Because maybe that collectivism actually might help avert the crisis. Like, and if for the homeowners, do you know your neighbors? Do you know your block? Right? Because that to me is the first step in averting this kind of crisis. Right? Is getting together and start building that community when you have the chance, when you're not at risk of being displaced. So if that ever does come to pass, you all are ready. The relationships are there. They're formed. You're solid. You're united, right? And hopefully it doesn't have to take that disaster or that crisis to unite you.
I'll just add on to like the LA Tenants Union only formed when LA started to really gentrify. It came out of crisis. And unfortunately, I think that really also made the LA Tenants Union kind of a mess because each local has now even become more like separated from each other. I remember like going to meetings originally and we were thinking, you know, we're going to go on rent strikes and we're going to go on rent strikes because the cops killed somebody. It wasn't even because of a housing issue. We were connecting how these struggles could help each other. And what if the whole city went on rent strike and, you know, instead of just begging city council to stop funding the police, we all went on rent strike. That would be something different because we didn't defund the police just by asking them. So how do we flex our power? And as someone from a union background, because that's what I did before I became a lawyer, I was with SCIU, which is a terrible union, but they did teach me how to union organize. And you got to map your building. You got to know who knows who. Who's the one that, you know, because everyone, sometimes, especially in these buildings, they are actually related. They do like, oh, that person's that sister. And okay, cool. And you find out who everybody is and you identify leaders. And then you go, okay, cool, that's the person that's going to like go and so when you do that application to your own housing, I mean, it's amazing what can happen. But to that point, yeah, we start out of crisis, we're going to already be harmed, unfortunately. But it is the struggle. So.
And then the theme of like solidarity, right? The theme of solidarity, I've been thinking about this and so coming here. And it's like we need to learn the emotional intelligence and the skills necessary to build deep, strong relationships with one another. Because we're not taught that. Where are you taught that? You're not taught that in school. It's actually just like ripped out of you in school because it's all about following rules and you know it's all power over dynamics. And those are the same dynamics that our entire society is built off of. With those who have the power, they get to control and manipulate. Right? And we do that even in every system that you can think of. It's the same power dynamic. The renter and the owner, the same power dynamic. Right? And we need to like break free from that relationship and start building interdependent relationships. And that means that us as adults, we have to learn the skills to communicate, to form relationships, to understand one another, to have compassion for one another, and to support one another. Because otherwise, like Alejandro said, you're going to get those people that's like, nah, I'm good. It's like, you do you. It's like, I'm good. And that type of individualism is not going to move this movement forward, right? We need to build that interdependence and that collectivism, that solidarity with one another, and try to do that now before a crisis hits. And I think that's what's going to move our movement forward, because then, like Alexi said, it's like, oh man, that's what's happening. You know what? We're all going to stop paying rent. I mean, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do? Imagine the entire city went on rent strike. Imagine. But that takes like knowing that somebody's got my back should something happen to me, right? If I knew my neighbors, it's like, don't worry, if they try to evict you, we got you, right? We got you. And then that would make me feel safer in taking that action. But if there's no safety, if there's no camaraderie, there's no like solidarity, it's like, I'm not going to feel safe doing that on my own. Because what if they come after me? Who's going to help me out? But if I know that all you is like, we got your back, it's like, then I'll be more apt to do it.
And I'll just note, if you look at the history of why we even have eviction laws, which is some way you're like, oh, that protects me because there's a process. But what used to happen is that the whole neighborhood would show up and throw objects at the pigs, and it would be a riot. And that's why we have eviction process laws. So, again, from an anarchist perspective, what is the law here for? It's not to protect tenants. It's protect the landlord so they don't get a tomato thrown at them. And it's like crazy how many lawsuits also come out of, tenants going and protesting at the landlord's house because they're so offended that they're being called out. I mean, it's nuts. But if we look at why are we here, it always was to stop us to coming together and taking our destinies in our own hands. So, yeah, that's
I think if anything's going to change, is like the law. It's just a tool that we try and use in our favor to help the tenants out, and the law is like speed limit. Only because it says 65 doesn't mean people aren't going to break it, and owners do it all the time. So even though the law says, owner, you can't do this, they're still going to do it. They're still going to do it because they know that they're going to have an attorney to go to court, and the likelihood that a tenant's going to get an attorney is close to none, right? So they're still going to do it. So we can't rely on the law, and we can't rely on policy to make these changes. It's like we have to do this from the ground level, and that starts by building relationships with one another, because we come together. It's like that's when things are going to change. But if we're just constantly just trying to protect this person, it's like then that's all we're doing. It's like we're just pulling the babies out of the river, but we're not going upstream to find out what the hell is going on and who's throwing the babies in the river, right? And that's what we need to start doing. But we're so focused on defending that we need to learn how to come together and go on the offense. And that's what I think that we need to do in order to move this move this movement forward.
And we'll review on what the strategies are working on. So with health and tenants, what do? They poured off, they assembled all together, they shared information, they tried to empathize instead of turning against one another. You're hearing there's court support from the homies, right? That's another strategy. Where is from a legal perspective, policy perspective, where do you even find out about your rights? ¿Cómo se informan sobre sus derechos? ¿A dónde van? ¿A con quién? What are some of the basic steps? So you're like, all right, I got servant eviction defense. Step one.
Yeah, like I said, the LA tenant unions has been very helpful. They bring us a lot of information, and since all this started, we've been we were meeting every single Thursday, even during the pandemia via Zoom, every Thursday. It was until last month that we decided to, do it every other Thursday, unless there is some emergency or something really important. We do it every week again. But and that's how we've been trying to get the information from lawyers. We have invited lawyers to our meetings to inform us what exactly is the process of eviction and what are the rights that we have, how we could fight. But I'm going to tell you, one of the tools that has helped us a lot to draw the attention of the public is the protest. Protesting the politicians, protesting the landlords, protesting whoever has to do with our case. We have protested at the beginning we protested with the lawyer that served those notices of increasing the rent to market rate. We went to his offices, and I don't know if it was because we went to protest at his offices, but he's no longer the lawyer of this landlord. It's another firm. But protesting is very important. We've been trying to get the attention of, at the time, Council Member Bill Cedillo. We sent him letters, we sent him emails, even two persons came to his office and couldn't talk to him. That's when we started protesting him. That's when he came to meet with us. And after that, this year, Karen Boss, she went on campaign to our building when she was on campaign the last 2 weeks before the elections, and she promised she was going to support us and this and that. After that, we were emailing her, trying to reach her, and we couldn't. We had to protest at the mayor's house for 3 days on a weekend, and after that, we got a meeting with her. So it is very powerful tool. The way that the workers go on the strike to stop working, that's how it works. Protesting, showing these politicians or whoever to, hey, we are here. We want to talk to you. We want to deal with you. We want to negotiate with you. We want support from you. That's how we do it. And I would like to say something about to be like supportive each other, not only like in this movement about renters that we are, or evictions that is going on now after the pandemic, but also the workers who were on a strike, like the hotels and restaurant workers. One of the things that they were saying, we want a raise on our salary because we cannot afford not even pay rent. I mean, those are linked. Our fight to stay in our homes and their fight to make more money to, to pay rent at least. So, I think we could do like, starting a building, try to communicate to each other, but also to other movements, like other buildings who are in the same situation, other associations who are in the same situation, and other like the workers. We've been supporting the workers who are in a strike, so that's how we build as well, like this, how you call it, like, allies. Whenever you need to make a protest and you need more people, if you are in contact with other associations, you might get help from them to go to your protest. If they need to go to protest someone, a politician or their landlord, and they call us, we go. I've been going to many protests with them, with other tenants associations. And I think that's the way that we can make this bigger, that we participate with each other, we support each other, not only in the building, starting our building first, but then we can expand to other people who are dealing with the same in other part of the city.